So let me just read a little bit here. He was born in Boise, Idaho, and he now lives in Springfield, Massachusetts, and graduated from American University in 1969, and he started his foreign service career by a position in Vietnam, which of course that was during my years after college, and it was the sort of hot spot at the time. Over the course of 30 years, he served in 11 posts in 9 different countries in the Middle East, including being U.S. ambassador to both Qatar and Lebanon. He has also acted as special representative to the UN Commission on Sustainable Development, U.S. representative to the Intergovernmental Panel on Forests, and special negotiator on climate change. In 2005, Ambassador Hambley became a senior trustee of the Next Century Foundation, and in this capacity, he's undertaken 2 missions to date, one to the Red Zone in Baghdad to facilitate negotiations with His Eminence Abdul Aziz Al-Hakim, and the other to Jerusalem during the 2006 Lebanon War to work on the Syrian peace track. Today, the ambassador serves on the board of directors of Apollo Security, a security company based in Massachusetts, and he's still active on assignment to go to the Middle East and to take care of things around the world. So I'd like to now introduce Ambassador Hambley. And,
Thank you very much, Royce. I must say, it's a great pleasure to be here with the International, the ICW. The work you're doing, I'd just like to underscore something which Royce indicated in his report, and Phyllis also iterated, the importance of your work. When I was overseas in various postings, we were the ones that sent the international vision. We identified people as future leaders in their communities and sent them off to the United States. Never really heard much until they came back. Generally, they were very praiseworthy of the cities and towns they visited. But while many went to Chicago, to New York, and Los Angeles, San Francisco, the ones who really came back with a good impression of America were those who went to the second-tier cities, such as Richmond, Worcester, Springfield, or Omaha, Nebraska. There they really got a sense of what America is, who we are as a people, our commitment to advancing the goals of freedom and the way we practice democracy on a local level. This, for most of them, is a very important ingredient to their business. I'm sure your Egyptians who were here last month or 2 months ago certainly came to appreciate what they learned here in Worcester, in their own experiences in Egypt very recently. But today we're going to talk about part of the world which Josh and I love very much, the Middle East. We've lived in Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Qatar, Jordan, and Lebanon, multiple times in some of these places. It's part of the world which we've always enjoyed. Under the headlines, we get always very negative about bombings, kidnappings, explosions, anti-Americanism, etc. We always found the people to be a very important ingredient of our lives. People, regardless of whether they're in Gaza, in Jerusalem, in Cairo, Baghdad, or Sanaa, people just want what we want. They want to have a safe, secure life for their children. They want food on the table for them to eat at night. They want their kids to wake up in the morning with a hopeful outlook for the future. So now we get the Middle East once more in the news. This time something called the Arab Spring, and we're going to today go over some of the examples of this. We'll start with Tunisia. But before we do that, let me just say that there are several countries where this course has been taking place. Started in Tunisia, then went to Egypt, almost simultaneously, got going down in Yemen. Syria was not happening for the first bit. We started to have rumblings in Libya and in Bahrain, and a little bit in Saudi Arabia too. So today we're going to look at just a few of these countries in some detail. We'll look at Tunis first, we'll go to Egypt, then we'll go to Yemen, and then we'll go to, I think we'll go maybe to Syria, to Libya, we'll go to Syria. And then we can talk as well about some other places which are also very much in the news, such as Bahrain, and so if you have questions about those. We start with Tunisia. Tunis is a very interesting country. I like it a lot. It's about 64,000 square miles, slightly larger than the state of New York. Tunis is the capital up here. Libya is a neighbor over on this side, Algeria on this side, not too friendly, either of them. So it's always in a difficult position. So it's been pro-Western, despite the fact that the governments of various have been quite autocratic in the past. When we do a timeline here, we see that in Tunis, December 17, 2010 is really a key day. This is when a young man named Mohammed Abu-Azizi set himself on fire. This is a story which has been repeated as part of the folklore now of the Arab Spring. Mohammed was just an unemployed man. In order to make money for his family, started a little stand of fruit and vegetables. He was selling it outside a little town located down in Susa. And the police come up to him and said, where's your license? You can't sell these things. And I have to sell it. $200 a day to put out to get these vegetables. If you have to have a license, they tipped over the wagon. And in complete distress, he went off and said, I can't take it anymore. My government's not helping. My family is impoverished. And he set himself on fire. And he died on January 4th, 2011. And that sparked a whole series of outrage. His funeral the next day was one attended by several thousand people. They marched on the governor's office. And from there, riots spread throughout the country. It was quite a remarkable occurrence, a situation where President Ben Ali ordered the army to break up the disturbances. The Tunisian army is very small. President Bourguiba, who was sort of the founder of modern Tunis, insisted the army stay very small. There's only 26,000 officers in all the branches of the armed forces. They're American trained, that's very important. Being American trained, they learned a bit about our way we divide between civil and military responsibilities. And so the chief of staff, when instructed by President Ali to break up the demonstrations, use force as necessary, said, no, I'm not going to do that, Mr. President. We are to fight our enemies, not the people. Whereupon promptly sacked by President Ben Ali, placed her in house arrest. The next day, however, there were more riots, and on January 14th, he suddenly packed up his bags and left the country. Everyone was totally stunned how this dictator who ruled the country for over 28 years was suddenly was gone. The revolution thus began. I visited Tunis the following month in February. The country is still very much in ferment. There is, again, a country which had no real organized political parties other than the ruling RCD party. Suddenly it came to a situation where they had to find new parties in order to organize themselves for new possibilities. They then decided elections would be held October 2011. A new constitution would be drafted by that legislature once it's been in power. But who's going to run for legislature? At the moment, there's a struggle going on between the Islamic movement and secular parties. In the 1980s and 90s, there was a movement called a Nahda. It was Renaissance of Arabic. One which Renaissance of Arabic known as Ba'ath, the same thing. But a Nahda was a very strong party organized by a man named Rashad Ghannouchi, who they ran for the elections in the 1990s, the last time they were able to do so. Came very close to winning 17% of the seats, but they were nullified and forced into covert activity. Ghannouchi and others went overseas. He went to London, stayed there for 20 years, and returned in late January to Tunis, where he's now organizing against the next elections. Now, Nahda is an interesting Islamic party. Ghannouchi has written a great deal about the importance of Islam in the political movement. And his writings have never really circulated in Tunisia. They've always been banned there. However, they did circulate in a country very important role was Turkey. And the current AKP party, which rules in Turkey, very moderate Islamic party, actually drafted a lot of its viewpoints from Ghannouchi's writings. So whether those will now take root in Tunis remains to be seen. The other only organized component in Tunisia are the trade unions. They're quite leftist in many ways. They former Communist Party was also banned by Ben Ali, but they've now formed a group called the FHD. And this is supposed to be a modern left-wing party. It has the former communists in it as well, but they're the main secular opposition to the Ennahda party. I say the main opposition party. In fact, there are over 82 political parties in Tunisia. 82. A dozen of these have joined Ittijad. Others are fronts for the disgraced RCD of Ben Ali. These people still have a lot of money, a lot of influence, and are believed to be organizing ways to get into the parliament again. But the rest of these parties are broken up between Islamists and secular tendencies. We heard about the role of Facebook in these revolutions. Indeed, one I think can say that Facebook played a very important role in organizing this phenomenon called the Tunisian Revolution of January 25. The reason I say this is because this is a young lady with Facebook. You go through the streets of Tunis and you see words in Arabic and in English. Thank you, Facebook. Shukran, Facebook. About 1,200 people actually started this movement. After Azizi died, they circulated that they had to have protests, that his life did not go in vain. They organized themselves and spread out and got support from the miners down in the south of the country, who had a lot of disputes with the government going back several months. And suddenly these two forces came together with young activists in the forefront, with the hard muscle of workers and farmers and industrial employees, and they suddenly came forward into a revolution. Road ahead for Tunisia, there's no doubt the country has enormous problems. And its ambitions are literally stratospheric. Everybody you talk to in Tunis has an interest in building democracy. You talk to people, you think they're going to talk about being like Turkey, which is what the model we sort of see for these countries. No, they want to be like France, like Italy, like England. They want to have real parliamentary participatory democracy, although no one has any experience of this at all. One great difficulty, the government really has no money. When I visited in February, we had situations where a lot of the enterprises, both those controlled by the state and those controlled by private individuals, have been taken over by workers who demanded better salaries, better conditions, etc. In many instances, private companies particularly, said, okay, we'll give you a 20% rise in salary. No, we want a 100% rise in salary. Guys, I can't do it. We can't afford that. Hence, they closed the offices. So some of these premises have now been occupied by the workers. Their markets, they have running markets for the goods. A lot of textile companies, which provide many labels we see in our stores, are made in Tunis from textile factories. These at the moment are not producing very much. So industry is basically ground to a halt in many instances. Tourism is down. It's not completely stopped. The French are still going into Monastir and the place up here, you can see Said, next place, Hamamet. There's very, very large groups of mass tourism in those areas, but those are down considerably. Disturbances do continue. Just last week, there was a disturbance down in the south in which, very much between tribes, in which there was a lot of bloodshed, 20 people died. The authorities had to go in and break it up. So until they can bring those under control, there will always be a bit of unsettling life in Tunis. In addition, there are problems both Algeria on the one hand and Libya on the other. As you know, there are no air flights into Libya, so a lot of people have to go through the border down here. There's been several 100,000 refugees who piled out of Libya into Tunis. Many of them are still in Tunis. Others have been evacuated to their countries. The Chinese evacuated, I think, 20,000 of their people, and Egyptians about 25,000 from this way. There's about 2 million Egyptians in Libya, most went the other way. Algeria as well has had its own disturbances. Has brought down the government yet. They haven't reached that point. But the Algerian desert, unfortunately, is a place where weapons belonging to something called Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb. Maghreb is western and North Africa, from Libya to Morocco. Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb has launched attacks in every country in the Maghreb except for Libya. They've launched them in Tunis, Mauritania, Morocco, Algeria, but not in Libya. But I'm afraid you'll probably see some of those as these arms make their way across into Libya. So, but regardless, I think the Arab Spring did begin in Tunis. One hopes the summer will be hot from the climate and not because of politics, but that remains to be seen.